right, we are diving into one of Germany's most infamous and truly bone-chilling unsolved cases. Back in 1922, on a remote farmstead, an entire family was brutally murdered. But here's the twist. The killer didn't just run. They stayed. This is the absolutely unsettling story of the Hinterkaifeck murders. Seriously, just imagine for a second, you're the one who finds this. You're in a dark, dusty attic, and you see these words carved right into a wooden beam. And right below it, a makeshift bed of straw and blankets. The carving is fresh. You know the family who lived here was just murdered. This isn't just a clue somebody left behind. It's a statement, a declaration. And that declaration, it leads us to the absolute core of this mystery. 6 people, an entire family plus their maid, slaughtered with a pickaxe. But the killer, they don't just vanish into the night. No, they stay. They make themselves at home. They're eating the family's food, sleeping in their beds, even taking care of the farm animals, all while the bodies of the people they just killed are lying out in the barn. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's April 4th, 1922. The neighbors are getting worried. Nobody's seen the Gruber family for a few days, which is unusual. The mail's piling up, the kids haven't been in school, all the little signs that something's wrong. But the weirdest part, there's still smoke coming from the chimney. Someone's home, right? So the neighbors finally work up the courage to go over and check things out. They head to the barn first, and what they find inside, it's just a scene of pure horror. But then they go into the farmhouse, and everything is normal, bizarrely normal. The animals have been fed, the fires are lit, somebody's been eating meals in the kitchen. This killer didn't just commit murder and run. They moved in. So who were these people? Well, you had the Gruber family, Andreas and his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her 2 kids, Cecilia and little 2-year-old Joseph. And then there was the new maid, Maria Baumgartner. And this is just heartbreaking. It was her very first day on the job. She arrived on March 31st and was dead just a few hours later. She never even stood a chance. But here's where the story gets even stranger. To really get what happened here, we have to rewind a bit. Because this horror didn't just show up out of the blue on the night of the murders. Oh no, it had been circling the farm for months, creeping closer, watching, waiting. You can see the dread just escalating, right? It starts with the old maid quitting, just fleeing in terror because she's hearing footsteps and voices in the house. Then, a newspaper from Munich just appears on the property. Nobody bought it, nobody subscribed. Then Andreas Gruber himself starts hearing these heavy footsteps pacing around in the attic. But when he goes up to look, there's nobody there. And then, the final, chilling sign, a single set of footprints in the snow, coming out of the forest, leading right to the house. But no footprints leading away. And just hours before she was killed, the new maid Maria wrote a letter to her sister. And in it, she mentioned something that 7-year-old Cecilia said that night. The man in the barn is hungry. Maria, being new, asked what she meant, but her mother just shut the conversation down immediately. Which begs the terrifying question. Did the family know someone was out there? Were they being terrorized? All right, so let's talk about the night it all went down. Friday, March 31st, 1922. The waiting was over. Whatever had been lurking in the woods, in the attic, in the barn, it finally made its move. And this wasn't some chaotic, frenzied attack. No, it was methodical. It was calculated. The police theory is that the killer lured 4 of the family members out to the barn, one by one, and killed them with a pickaxe. Then the killer went inside the house and waited. Hours later, he murdered little 2-year-old Joseph in his bed. The maid, Maria, was the last to die. She was killed in her room, and the scene showed signs of a violent struggle. She fought for her life. So now the police are on the scene and the investigation begins. But every single thing they uncover just makes the whole case murkier. It paints a picture of a killer who was, on the one hand, an absolute savage, and on the other, just unbelievably meticulous and calm. I mean, just try to get inside this person's head for a minute. You've just murdered 6 people. And what do you do next? You take the murder weapon, a pickaxe, and you meticulously wipe every last trace of blood off of it before leaning it against a wall. That's not someone in a panic. That's someone who is terrifyingly calm, as if they've just finished a day's work. And then, underneath that clean pickaxe, maybe the most disturbing discovery of all, A little collection of items arranged in a pattern: a pocket watch, a wedding ring, a locket, a doll, a toy soldier, a rosary. One personal item taken from each of the 6 victims. This wasn't just a murder anymore. This was some kind of ritual. These were trophies.
So you see the impossible puzzle the police were facing, right? On one hand, you have all this evidence that the killer was there, living in the house, eating their food, tending the farm. He practically took over. But on the other hand, nothing. No forced entry, nothing of value was stolen, so it wasn't a robbery. There was absolutely no clear motive, no viable suspects, no fingerprints. The killer was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. A total ghost.
And this ghost hunt went on for decades. We're talking more than 100 suspects investigated over the years. They looked at everyone: travelers, angry neighbors, jilted lovers, even other family members. At one point, they even exhumed the bodies and sent the skulls for analysis, though they were lost during World War II. But it didn't matter. Every single lead just fizzled out. The case, believe it or not, is still technically open, but the official investigation is pretty much where the facts end and the legend begins. Because the story of Hinterkaifeck didn't stop in 1922. It's like the land itself absorbed the horror of that night and never let it go. They actually tore down the farmhouse just a year later, probably trying to just wipe the memory clean. It didn't work. For years, people who tried to farm that land would abandon it, claiming they heard strange noises, that they always felt like they were being watched. And this isn't just old folklore. Fast forward to 2009. A film crew is there. They flee in the middle of the night after hearing footsteps circle their tent. And in the morning, what do they find? A single set of tracks in the dew, leading to their camp and none leading away. Sound familiar? So yeah, the official police files might be collecting dust in some archive, but the story of Hinterkaifeck is far from over. 100 years later, the question has changed. It's not just who did it anymore. It's what did it? What kind of evil took root on that farm? And is it still there? Still waiting? Those footprints from 2009, they're an exact echo of what Andreas Gruber saw in the snow all those years ago. It really makes you wonder, maybe whatever hunted the Grubers wasn't just a person who could be caught and locked away. Maybe it's something older, something tied to the land itself, something that is still sending the exact same terrifying message it did a century ago. I waited, now I stay.